Hey guys, it's the Comics Kid 2099, and yesterday I went shopping with my family, and I wound up getting quite a few things, 2 novels, and the rest of this stuff is comic book related. And since I talk about comic book stuff quite a bit on this channel, I thought I'd show you guys what I got. I've done this a couple of times before, once when I just went shopping somewhere, and then I've done it before with Christmas stuff, so I'll do it again here. First, I'll start with the 2 books. This is by Michael Moorcock, as you can see. I've read a couple of Moorcock stories before. One was like a omnibus of Elric. Elric is a albino sword and sorcery type character, kind of the anti-Conan, if that makes any sense at all. And I was really pleased with that Elric collection that I read, and I wanted to read something else by Moorcock, and this was 50 cents. So I thought that was a good deal. I vaguely have heard of this before, I believe. Not really, there's a summary on the back. I'm not entirely sure what it's about, though. So I look forward to reading that. It's not very long. I think this printing comes from like 1969, so it's kind of an old book. I look forward to reading it. I may, depending on how much there is to say about it, I might do a video. No promises, though. The other book is also by Michael Moorcock, and it is quite thick. This is one of the Cornelius Chronicles books. Michael Moorcock had created a character called Jerry Cornelius, who was basically a more flamboyant version of James Bond, as near as I can tell. This was kind of a science fiction-y version of Bond, if you will, and this book has, I think, 4 of the Cornelius stories. You can see them there, and that's basically all I know. I was introduced to this character of Jerry Cornelius via Alan Moore's The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I've done a video on the League before, kind of a rant video where I whined about Alan Moore and his attitude that is expressed in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and much as I'm not too happy with that franchise anymore, I will say it has introduced me to more stuff from other authors. I don't even know if I would have ever read anything from Michael Moorcock if it hadn't been for the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So I look forward to reading both of these. This one, it might be a very long time before I read it. And those are the 2 novels that I got. Then I got 2 single issues. This is both of these singles are from what are their names? The Beer Bombs. They did a roughly 10-issue run on the Legion of Superheroes after Keith Giffen's run. Keith Giffen lasted on the book for about 40 issues. Actually, he was a co-plotter with Paul. Wow, I'm just backtracking. Okay, Keith Giffen co-plotted the Legion of Superheroes with Paul Levitz, and this was shortly before Crisis on Infinite Earths. Circa 1989, give or take, Keith Giffen had about 40 issues where he was writing the book and kind of co-writing it with a husband and wife team, the Beer Bombs. And then after Giffen left around issue 40, for another 10 issues, the Beer Bombs were working on the title by themselves. I have all of Keith Giffen's run in singles, and I have most of the Beer Bombs run. I am missing issue 50, and I saw it today at the shop, but it was the shop I went to, one of them I went to. However, it was $3 or $4. It was $4, I think. I don't really want to pay $4 for a comic book from 1993, so that's just how it is. So I'm still missing 1 issue from the Beer Bombs run on the Legion of Superheroes. But I would like to have that whole run. And then I know this series went on for like 130 issues, but I don't really have to have everything beyond the Beer Bombs run because that would be a lot of single issues. And I don't typically buy single issues. I've said before that I really only buy trades, and that's, for the most part, that's true. This is, I think, some of the first single issues that I've bought in a very long time. So, if I would love to see all the Legion of Superheroes stuff that has not been collected, I would love to see put into trades. I think that would be one of the greatest things that DC Comics could do, and it would mean that I would still be reading DC Comics, because right now I'm basically not. But that's another video. So, there's this video, there's this issue. This is issue 49, and then there's issue 42. And those are the two Legion of Superheroes single issues that I got, and everything else here is a graphic novel of some kind. I don't know much about this book, Monster Attack Network. I don't even think I've heard of any of these creators, or the guy doing the introduction. I have heard of this book before. I've seen it online somewhere. I've seen people talk about it, I think. And basically what it looks like is, I think it's either a group of humans who, like, they're responsible for fighting giant monsters, and so they're like, the humans attack the monsters, and they're a network of humans. I think it's something like that, or you've got like a group of monsters that kind of are fighting evil monsters. Something along those lines. There's a little bit, well actually back here you just have praise from different comic book creators. The only name here that I recognize is Jeff Parker. And it doesn't actually have a whole lot in the way of plot. I will read it, and if I can, I'd like to do a video, because I really love these smaller books that I've never heard of, that usually they're a lot of fun. The ones, they can have science fiction, they can have fantasy, they can have all sorts of weird and wacky ideas, and I love those things. I don't only love them in Marvel and DC. I love seeing that kind of stuff in smaller books and smaller stories that a lot of people have maybe never heard of, and if it's something I enjoy, I love spreading the word. So I hope this is good, and I hope I can come back and say, seek this book out and read it. So I will move on to the next thing here. Oh, this. X-Men 2099. This is, I want to say, the first 10 issues of the early 90s series, X-Men 2099. And if you can see my username, I am a pretty big fan of the 2099 universe. This universe lasted maybe 5 years. That might be about as long as it lasted. And a few years ago, Marvel put out a few trades. It's the first 9 issues, I was mistaken. Marvel put out a couple of trades. They had a Spider-Man 2099 trade and the X-Men 2099 trade. And the thing is, I know the Spider-Man book lasted 33, 35 issues, and this series lasted about up to issue 30, I think. Maybe a little less. So there is a lot more of the 2099 universe beyond these 9 issues. However, I've looked, and as near as I can tell, Marvel doesn't seem to have any plans to keep going with future trades, which is a bummer because, one, there was more than just 2 titles in this line of comics. There was Doom 2099, Fantastic Four 2099 lasted a little while. It was one of the later books. There was Ghost Rider 2099, Punisher 2099, and Ravage 2099. So there was 4 or 5 different core books, and then there was a few that came a little later on. I would really love to just see that entire line of books collected in trade. I know the early 90s was not a fantastic time period for comic books. That was kind of when comics hit, in my humble opinion, a little bit of a bad point in storytelling, a bad point in art. I still have a fun, soft spot for the 2099 universe. I've said that before in previous videos, and as you can see from my username, I think highly enough of the branding of 2099 to name myself after it. So I would love to see that whole series and every other series from the 2099 world just put into a couple of trades. They could probably do 3 trades per series, and that would take care of it. That would be pretty cool, I think. But I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen. I got this because it was like $4, and that's a pretty good deal, I think. Most of these trades I got were actually discounted, and Otherwise, if this was full price, I probably would not have gotten it because they don't seem to have any intention to keep going with the more trades. And, this series lasted, like I said, 33 issues. If they're only going to put out the first 9, that would be like if they made Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone the movie and then didn't make any more movies. Like, it's an incomplete story, and you want to see the story in its complete form. And so I got this because it was discounted. Granted, I do love the $20.99 universe, but I don't love it enough to buy an incomplete story in the form of one trade, and the company doesn't really have any desire to put out more trades. I think I'm spinning my wheels here, so I'm going to put this over here. I do hope that Marvel puts out more of those $20.99 books. If they do, I'd love for somebody to correct me and say, hey, Comics Kid, you're wrong. I would love it if that happened. Olympus. This is another one of those kind of smaller stories that I've never heard of. I don't think I've ever heard of either of these creators. And the premise, since I haven't read this book, I don't think anything that I say here is going to be a spoiler, especially since it's on the back of the book. The premise is Zeus granted 2 brothers immortality, and they have to serve him. And then it jumps forward to the present day. So you've got like a cop with a gun there. And these 2 brothers are servants of Zeus, and they're hunting down enemies of Olympus. And I've never heard of this creative team. I've never heard of this book. But the premise sounds pretty solid, and the art looks pretty great also. So we'll see what this brings us. I hope that it's another one that I can come in and say, go buy this book. See, it's from Image Comics. That's not even an especially small press company. I'm not saying you shouldn't support it because it's a bigger company, but I've never heard of it. And I'm hoping I can come in and say, this was good. Go buy it, because it's good. One of the last of the kind of small unknown stories. This is Fused, Think Like a Machine, and I basically got it because it's got a robot on it. And like I've said this before, I am a pretty big fan of science fiction and fantasy. However, just because a story uses elements of science fiction and fantasy does not necessarily mean that the story will be good for me. It also has to have engaging characters and engaging stories. I don't know if this will have that. I basically just bought it blind. And this is from, I don't actually know the company that did this, Rocket Comics. And it's by Steve Niles. Steve Niles did the 30 Days of Night comic books that eventually became movies. And he's okay. He did a Batman story that I wasn't very fond of, but I feel like he's one of those creators, you put him on an established character, it's not going to be well received because he has a certain style, he has a certain way of doing things, and that's going to clash with an existing fan base. But if he does his own thing, like 30 Days of Night or Fused, then it will hopefully turn out a lot better. I don't think I've read any of his 30 Days of Night. I only saw the live-action movie, the first one. I know there was a second one that I had never heard of until years later. I've only read his Batman story that I was talking about, so I hope this is good. It looks promising. Ooh, that might have been a little bit of a spoiler. I should have warned you. But if it's any consolation, I spoil myself too. So, that's something. I'm going to put that over here now. If I sound like I'm babbling, it's because I am. A lot of those smaller press books, I bought them because they looked interesting, but I really don't have much to say about them. There are, I believe, 5 of these Age of Apocalypse complete editions. See, this is a pretty thick volume, and this is the Prelude. And there were, after the Prelude, there were 4 other, air quotes, complete volumes. I think I have 3 of the complete volumes. I might have all 4, I don't know. But this one was being very elusive. I was looking all up and down the internet, because my comic book shop did not have those. So I was looking on the internet, and I had either 3 of the 4 numbered volumes or 4 of the 4, and I did not have this one, and I wanted to go ahead and read this before reading the numbered volumes. And on every website that sells graphic novels that I looked, it was going close to $30 when you factored in shipping. And I don't know how you could factor in fishing. And then I saw it at this one store that we went to, and it was about $30, but all the trades were 25% off. So it was a little less. I don't know my math very well, so I don't know exactly what 25% of $30 is, but basically it ended up being just a little bit less than what it would have been if I had bought it online. So I think this has the Legion Quest storyline. I am not entirely certain, because I know Volume 1 of the Complete Age of Apocalypse books, it was not all Age of Apocalypse stuff from the original Age of Apocalypse, if that makes sense. Like, it was a couple of standalone issues that had come after the initial Age of Apocalypse, but were set in the Age of Apocalypse. This, I think, is all lead up to the Age of Apocalypse. And in my opinion, from what little I've read of the Age of Apocalypse stuff, you really need to read Legion Quest before you read the Age of Apocalypse. You can maybe understand, okay, it's an alternate universe, I get that. But Legion Quest explains the how and why. I won't say any more. This story is probably about 20 years old at this point. But it's a really, what I've read of it, and of course it's been several years since I read anything from the Age of Apocalypse, but what I read was very enjoyable. And a lot of X-Men stuff today really cribs from this story. House of M, Age of Ultron, sort of, Age of X. I know there was another one that I'm missing that I can't think of. Flashpoint was sort of like that. All of those stories definitely owe their existence to the Age of Apocalypse. So I'm looking forward to reading this, if only because it will kind of flesh out my X-Men stuff from the 90s. If you look at my shelf, which I did a video, it was one of my first videos back in October of last year, showing off my X-Men collection, and I did not have a whole lot of stuff from the 90s then. I still really don't, although I have a few more things now than I did then. And this is from the roughly mid-90s, 94-ish, I think. So, once I read these and put them up on my shelf, I will have a more fleshed out 90s X-Men collection, I guess, if you will. So, looking forward to that. I haven't read all of the Legion Quest stuff. I don't even know if the Legion Quest stuff is in there. As far as I know, it is. It might not be. Got a Batgirl trade. This is Cassandra Cain. I don't know much about Cassandra Cain. I have a couple of Batgirl trades that I have not read yet, but it was one of those things where a lot of the Cassandra Cain Batgirl trades are out of print. And so anytime I see one, it's like, oh, well, I need to get that because it's cheaper here than it would be if I got it online or something. I have 2 of them, and then I saw another one there that I was not sure if I owned or not. In fact, I still don't know if I could have gotten it or not, because I haven't looked at my collection to see if I have it yet. I have not read any of these Batgirl books because I want to start in order, and I don't think that any of the ones that I have are the first issues in the run. I'm going to go ahead and look real quick. This is actually the first 6 issues. I didn't know that. I just saw that it was a volume I did not have, so I picked it up. Awesome. I will be able to read this, and then I won't have to wait to get the beginning of the story. Great. I'm looking forward to this. A lot of people, and I mean like the entire internet, huge Cassie Cain fans. I hope that her stories are as good as they've been hyped up to be in all the years that I've been hearing about this girl. What little I've seen of her, she's pretty awesome, but I'm hoping that it's even better than what I've seen. So, This is awesome. I'll be able to read this fairly soon, and I won't have to wait and delay it. Great. Yes. Got a couple of Elseworld books here. One of them, Batman, Claws of the Catwoman, and a Tarzan book, too. So this is a team-up between DC Comics and Dark Horse Comics, and it's not set in the main Batman line because it's set in the 1930s, I believe. And you've got Tarzan stories typically set around that time, I think, in the 30s. I could be mistaken. You know, I've never actually read a Tarzan story or watched a Tarzan movie. But I do like some Edgar Rice Burroughs. Edgar Rice Burroughs created Tarzan, and he created John Carter of Mars. So if you saw that movie with Gambit from Wolverine Origins, then you that was Edgar Rice Burroughs, the guy who created Tarzan. Anyway, this is an Elseworld book. It's got Batman teaming up with Tarzan, and it's a more retro story because, like I say, it's set in the past. I'm looking forward to it. I have a decent Batman collection, and I've wanted to get this for a while now, but I just haven't done it, mostly because it's not something that is, air quotes, necessary to read. It's just more of a fun, enjoyable story. I hope it's good. I've seen a YouTube video that recommends it, so we'll see. We'll see what we get with that. This one is really short. This is like, I want to say 60 pages, maybe about that long. I've seen this online before. It's called Scar of the Bat. And what's, of course, pretty interesting about this is Batman has a Tommy gun, and he's shooting those gangsters there. This is, of course, an Elseworld story, so it's okay for Batman to have a gun here because this is not the Batman. But it's also kind of draws your eye because if you know anything about Batman, you know that he is very anti-guns. So this was like $2. This was very cheap. I wouldn't have paid much more than that because it's so very thin. I wouldn't want to pay, cover price even. See, cover price is $5. I probably wouldn't want to pay cover price for this. I haven't read it, and I do know Max Allan Collins, he did the English translation of the manga Batman story Child of Dreams. He was involved with translating it into English, and he is a novelist. I have never read any of his novels, but he does like homages to pulp stories, and he's a pretty big Batman fan, from what I understand. He might be. See, I'm about to say something, and I'm probably going to think that I'm an idiot if I'm wrong. He was in one of those comic book documentaries that you see on TV sometimes, and I'm pretty sure he was listed as comic book historian, but which is weird because he actually has a career. He's a novelist, and he's written some comics. But, wouldn't it be awesome to be called a comic book historian and that be like your profession? Yeah. Like I say, that might not have even been Max Allan Collins that I'm thinking of, and if it was not, I'm going to feel really stupid when I look that up later. Legends, the collection. This is an old trade. You can't really tell, but the page is very old-feely. It's like newspapery. It's not the best quality of paper. The story is from the late 80s, and it's, I guess, an event story in the it's post-Crisis on Infinite Earths. And what I'm trying to say is, DC and Marvel, they both do these event stories. Usually they're pretty huge and sprawling. Like House of M was an 8-issue story, and then there was a whole bunch of tie-ins within existing comics, and there were mini-series made to tie into it. And they do this all the time. Fear itself did this. Age of Ultron is doing it now. Legends was, I guess, the 1980s version. I know that some of the comics of the time had the Legends banner on the comic. I don't know how much those comics tied into this, because even back then, like with Crisis on Infinite Earths, there would be issues that would have the Crisis logo on a comic book, and then fans would dub it a Red Skies crossover. Because within the story of Crisis on Infinite Earths, at one time, the skies turned red all across the planet, and that would be the extent of the crossover. Like, you might have Superman on a date with Lois Lane, and you can see that the sky is red outside, and then DC Comics would say, oh, okay, this is a Crisis tie-in, when it really wouldn't be. I think Legends basically did that, where you really don't need to read Batman issue 400 or whatever that is a Legends crossover. You really only need to read this to understand what's going on. I don't know the story here. I don't. Actually, it might have something to do with the Fourth World. Jack Kirby's Fourth World, I think, was was tied into this, and if it was, that will be awesome, because it looks like John Byrne did the art. I love John Byrne's art. Sometimes I don't like John Byrne as a person. But yeah, Lynn Wein, Carl Kessel, and John Ostrander. I've heard of all of those guys. I should probably show you since I was talking about them. I've heard of all of those guys, and I've enjoyed stories from all of them. So this will hopefully be a lot of fun. And if you have ever seen... If you have ever seen the... what's called the Bwahaha Justice League, with the Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, Guy Gardner, that version of the Justice League spun out of this series. So, if I don't know how tonally similar it is, because none of the creators from that Justice League series are working on this book, but I do know that this was kind of the springboard for that series. So, I've been wanting to read this for a while, if only because I like getting these little events from the past. I've got a few others from the 90s that they're fun. They're not necessarily good, but they're a lot of fun for me. Yes, the final book. The final countdown. Angel, After the Fall. It's volume 1. There it is. I got volume 3 the last time we went shopping like this, and it was like $4, $3 or $4 when I got it. This was $13, so a little bit more steeply priced, but when you look at the cover price, it's $25, so I got a good deal. And I looked online, and this... Actually, I couldn't even find the hardcover for Volume 1 online at all. I did see the paperback version for like $30 on Amazon, which kind of shocked me. And then I saw the paperback version at another store we went to later, and I had already gotten this. And I would rather have the whole series in hardcover, since I've already got Volume 3 in hardcover, and everywhere I look, it's only in hardcover. It's never... I've only seen it in paperback today. I'm a big fan of this show, Angel. I haven't talked about it a lot, but as of now, by the time you're seeing this video, I have done a review of an episode of Firefly, and very shortly, as in tomorrow, I will be doing a review of another episode of Firefly. And basically, I'm a huge fan of Joss Whedon's shows that he's done. You know, they're not perfect. None of them are. Well, except Firefly. I have no problems with Firefly. But I am very much looking forward to seeing Angel without a budget, if that makes sense. Like, you know, Angel was always a very supernaturally based series, but it had to keep things tight with the money. So instead of seeing Angel fight a giant dragon, you have Angel fighting a law firm of lawyers who look human. And that's also cool, because it's something you don't really see a whole lot of in fiction. But I am very much looking forward to seeing Angel and his pals fighting the forces of hell. That is what I'm looking for. And if you didn't know that that was what the series is about, I apologize. But this series is kind of old. It's been around since like 2008, 2009. so it's about 5-ish years old. I saw volumes 1, 3, and 4 today at the store that I got this one at. And I already have 3. I do not yet have 2 or 4. But I can get the rest of the series online. This was the only one that was hugely expensive online. So I went ahead and got it today. And then I can go ahead and read this series. And I'm looking forward to it. I know there was a Spike After the Fall, which I don't know when I have to read it. They also had Spike After the Fall at the same store. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow, I guess. That is about all I have here. I didn't get anything else. I will probably report back to you guys with some of these. Some of them I won't, because there's only so much time in the day, and it may be a little while before I read a few of these. So until then, I will see you guys tomorrow with a different kind of video. So peace out, my homies, and I hope you enjoyed this video. See you guys later.